The spline object deforms object using splines. It moves the object along the spline and deforms it based on the shape of the spline. And as usual, to demonstrate, I'll use a cube, or actually this time I'll use a cylinder. I'll change the shading to garage shading because we need segments, so we want to see what's going on. So I'll increase the height segment to 30, and I'll keep the rotation segment 16 for now, and I'll go ahead and create our spline wrap, which I can find in this deformer menu. You can find it here as well in the create deformer menu here as well. So I have my spline wrap created, and like any other deformer, I'll make it a child of our cylinder and nothing happens. So what you have to do is you have to tell it a spline that we want to deform this cylinder along. So I'll come here and probably I'll create let's say a helix. All right, now I've created a helix, so I have to go into the spline object, and where it says spline, you drag the helix in there. You can see something is happening, but we don't know what's going on. So what you do is you come to the axis and you change the axis to, let's see, y, minus y. It could be either plus y or minus y. I think either of them will work. And now you see it deforming the cylinder along the helix. So I can actually come into the helix and open it, increase the height a bit. So it's deforming the cylinder along the spline, the helix spline. So when you come to the spline wrap, you can actually click on the mode here and say keep length. So now it's keeping the length of the cylinder but still trying to deform it along the spline. Let's get back here. You can see strength. So strength is, it brings it back to its normal shape. So the strength wouldn't matter for now. Offset, so offset moves the object along the spline, so I can see what's happening. And you can go even overboard, so you can go more than 100 and now move it, bring it back. So you can use it for a lot of interesting things as well. So I'll bring it back to 0, and from it to, so with this one I'll bring it back to keep fit to spline, and the from and to will move the thing, as in it will animate it like a sweep object. It will stretch it along the spline. So if I use the from, it's playing it back, so it grows on the spline like that. Using the from, grows on the spline. So whatever object that you have, it will grow on the spline, and 2 will be the from the other side. So if I use the 2, it will definitely be from the other side. So let's see the 2, so which is very, very interesting. Now, just like the sweep objects, when you come down here, you now can actually control the ends. So you can see what happens. So now it's making the beginning, like start point here, thinner, and keeps the other end like the way it is. So you can actually come in and manipulate it how you want it. You can actually hold control to add point and twist it to whatever form that you want to, play along with it. Same thing, you can come in here to the rotation and play with the rotation. See, rotates the geometry. The same thing, like you can actually do that more here, and all of those things. So I have a text created here using the mode text, and I've written spline wrap. So I can actually go ahead and create my own spline. So I'll come in here and I'll draw something like this, like that. Just anything to demonstrate. I'll hit escape. So simply I can add, in fact, let me create a new spline wrap. So I'll come in here and create a spline wrap, make it a child of the text, and I'll add my spline. So what's happening, let's zoom out to see what's happening. So it's stretching the text along the spline, which we don't want it. So we'll go to keep length and now you can see we have the text keeping its shape and everything, but it's rotate, like we can't see it. So we can come in here and come to the rotate and adjust the rotation here, which let me use the move tool actually. So I'll select and let's adjust the rotation here. You can see what's happening. So now it's rotated it the right way. We can actually play with it if this is what you want, you know. And you can actually now come to the offsets and things, and you can see what's happening, moving along the spline. You can bring it back to keep it straight. See what's up. So the two the from and the two will usually do the stretch and all that, and the offset will move it along the spline. And remember, it can actually go out of the spline. It's quite simple as that. So just like any deformer, the spline wrap also deforms splines as well. So I can actually come in and create a helix. I'll change the plane to XZ and increase the angle. So I'll increase the end angle to, like, let me say 6,000 for. Then I'll come in here and create a spline and an arc, which I'll increase the radius to maybe 400 and make this the angle 180. I'll simply, so I want to deform the helix along the arc, so I'll come in here and create my spline wrap, make it a child of the helix, and make sure I have the spline wrap, drop the arc in there, and you can see what's happening instantly. But we want to deform it on Y, so we come into the spline wrap, change it and say minus Y or plus Y, either of them, and now you can see the helix is moving along the spline. So you can come to our in, like, to and fro, to actually animate it and make it look like a slinky sort of walk. So here I have a normal cube which I've added the spline wrap, and I've deformed it along the circle here. So if I uncheck it, you can see it's a cube which I've made it 1800 on the Y, and I've deformed it along the circle. So when you come to the spline wrap, you can see we have rail here, and the rail, what it does is, it sometimes when you have some object, when you start animating it and moving it, you can see it flips because it doesn't know which part is up and which part is down. So the rail guides it and tell it which particular direction, like a railway which has two rails and it moves smoothly. So to guide it, I'll actually bring in create a copy of this circle. So I'll duplicate it, hold control to drag, then I'll select the spline wrap and I'll put it in the rail section, and you can see now something happens, but that's not what you want. So what I'll do is I'll scale the circle. I'll scale the circle, and you can see now everything is fine. So in this way, you are assured that when you are moving the cube or animating it, offsetting it along the spline, it wouldn't be flipping because it knows where it's moving, the boundaries in which it's moving between. But you can actually come in here, select the rail, and you can see now if I move it up, now it tries to find the balance between the two to fit in. If I should move it back, it tries to. So the rail sort of guides your object that you are deforming along the spline so that it moves in the way you want it to move. Also, sometimes the spline wrap can also act like a clonal object in some ways. So here I have a spline which has like a lot of segments, as in different splines, but it's all one spline with different segments. So, and I have the normal cube here. So I'll come in and add my spline wrap, make it a child of the cube, and now let's make drop in the landscape spline which I have here, and you can see what's happening. So let's go into our axis and change it to Y, and you can see instantly it's deformed all the cubes, actually created copy of each and deformed it along the various spline on each segment of the spline. So now it's sort of acting like a clonal object of a sort. So basically you can actually come in and you have access to all the controls, but this time it's one object, so you can come in and the size, it's giving you those controls to, you have access to the offsets and things like that, on and off. So it can also sort of act like a clone and you can play along with it. One last thing, and just like any deformer, the spline wrap can also deform group of objects. So here I have some cubes in here, so I'll simply come and create something like a circle, or you know what, let's create our own spline. So I'll come in here to the top view and I'll create a spline which we can, don't know what we are doing, something, anything, just a spline. I'll hit escape. Now I'll come into my perspective view, then I'll create a spline wrap, put it into the group of the cube, so make it a child of the parent which has all the objects you want to deform. Then now simply drag and drop in the spline wrap into the spline section, the spline to the spline wrap spline section. Now let's zoom out and you can see it's deforming along there, but we don't want it to stretch to fit, so we will come to keep length, and now you have our cubes deforming. Now we can actually come in, you can see it's rotating it, so we can come into the rotation, where the rotation is. Let's use this one. Let me use the move to select the spline wrap, and now you can rotate it. Simple as that. Now can come into the offsets and get something that's what it's as simple as that. Let me change the display to this one. Now gives you some nice train looking kind of thing, very interesting, or snake, so you can use it to animate stuff like snakes and things like that. It's very interesting way of working. So that's it for the spline wrap. See you in the next one.